Ambassador Dongwu was drinking his morning coffee when the message arrived. The red light on his desk started blinking, which meant only one thing: urgent communication from outside human space. He put down his cup and pressed the button. The hologram that appeared made his blood run cold. It was a massive creature that looked like a walking crystal, with dozens of sharp edges reflecting light in all directions. Behind it stood other aliens, some floating like gas clouds, others with too many arms and one that looked like a giant insect. Humans. The crystal being spoke with a voice like breaking glass. You will appear before the Galactic Council within 30 of your days. You have broken our laws. You have taken what is not yours. Come and explain yourselves or face the consequences. The message ended. Dongwu sat back in his chair, his hands shaking slightly. In his 20 years as Earth's ambassador to alien worlds, he had never received anything like this. His door burst open. Captain Hyune rushed in, still wearing her spacesuit from her recent mission. Her hair was messy and her eyes were wide with worry. "Sir, did you get the message?" she asked, breathing hard. "Yes," Dongwu replied. "Tell me what happened out there." Hyune activated her portable screen and showed him pictures of 3 beautiful planets. They had blue oceans, green forests, and clear skies. "We found these worlds 3 months ago. They're perfect for human life. Rich soil, clean water, and huge deposits of rare metals that could solve Earth's energy problems forever." She swiped to the next image, showing human settlements already being built. "We've got 5,000 colonists on each planet. They're building homes, schools, and farms. Everything was going perfectly until yesterday." "What happened yesterday?" "Alien ships appeared, big ones. They didn't attack, but they sent us the same message you just received. Then they left." Hyunai looked confused. "Sir, we checked all the star maps. These planets aren't claimed by anyone. They've been empty for thousands of years." Dongwu nodded slowly. "That might be the problem. The Galactic Council has been around for a very long time. They might consider these planets their property, even if no one lives there." Dr. Sunho entered the room. He was Earth's smartest scientist when it came to understanding alien life. His white hair and thick glasses made him look older than his 50 years, but his mind was sharp as ever. "I've been studying the Council for decades," he said without greeting them. "This is not good news." "What do you know about them?" Dongwu asked. Sunho pulled up a chair and opened his research files. "The Galactic Council is made up of 12 alien species. They've ruled this part of the galaxy for over 10,000 years. They're incredibly advanced. Their technology is like magic compared to ours." He showed them images of massive space stations and ships that looked like floating cities. "But here's the strange part. They haven't changed in all that time. Their technology is the same now as it was 5,000 years ago. Their society is exactly the same. They've stopped growing." "That doesn't sound so bad," Hyunai said. "It is bad," Sunho replied. "A species that stops growing starts dying. They become afraid of anything new or different. And humans. We're very new and very different." Engineer Bora arrived next. She was young but brilliant, responsible for building the new colonies. Her clothes were dirty from working with the colonists, and she looked angry. "Sir, I just talked to our people on the 3 planets. They refuse to leave." "Jinu, the farmer who's been growing food for everyone, says he'd rather die than abandon his crops. Teacher Yunji has 30 kids in her school, human children who were born on that world. She says it's their home now." Dongwu felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Thousands of human lives depended on what happened next. "What exactly does the Council want?" he asked Dr. Sunho. "They want us to bow down to them, to ask permission for everything we do, to accept that they're our superiors." Sunho's voice was bitter. "I've read their history. When a new species joins the galaxy, the Council tests them. If the species is weak, they become slaves. If the species is strong but stubborn, they get destroyed." "And if they're strong and smart?" Hyune asked. "That's the problem. No species has ever been both strong and smart enough to challenge the Council and survive. The Council always wins." Captain Hyune stood up, her fists clenched. "Then we'll be the first." "With what?" Bora asked. "They have ships the size of moons. We have a few dozen warships that are like toys compared to theirs." "We have something they don't," Dr. Sunho said quietly. Everyone looked at him. "We have the ability to change, to adapt, to grow. They've forgotten how to do that." Dongwu made his decision. "I'll go to this council meeting. I'll try to negotiate with them." "Sir, that's dangerous," Hyune warned. "They could kill you or hold you prisoner." Then you'll all know not to trust them, Dongwu replied. But maybe, just maybe, I can make them understand that humanity deserves a place in the galaxy. Over the next week, Dongwu prepared for the journey. He studied everything about the council species, learned their customs and practiced their forms of respect. He chose his words carefully, planning speeches that would show humanity's value without seeming threatening. Captain Hyun-ai prepared her ship, the New Soul, for the long journey to council space. The ship was humanity's newest and best, but it still looked primitive compared to the alien vessels they might encounter. Dr. Sun-ho gave Dongwu a special gift, a small device that would record everything that happened at the council meeting. If this goes badly, he said, at least Earth will know the truth. Engineer Bora sent final reports from the 3 planets. The colonists were working harder than ever, building their settlements and growing their crops. They knew their future was uncertain, but they refused to give up hope. On the day of departure, Dongwu stood at the window of his shuttle, looking down at Earth. The blue and green planet looked so small and peaceful from space. It was hard to believe that its future might depend on what happened in a council chamber thousands of light years away. "Ready, sir?" Captain Hyun-ai asked from the pilot's seat. "Ready," Dongwu replied, though his heart was pounding. As the New Soul entered hyperspace, heading toward the council's massive space station, Dongwu thought about the message from the crystal being. The alien's voice had been filled with contempt, as if humans were nothing more than annoying insects. Maybe they were right. Maybe humanity was too young, too weak, too primitive to stand among the ancient species of the galaxy, but Dongwu remembered the determination in the colonists' voices, the hope in the children's eyes, and the courage of the crew around him. If the council wanted to judge humanity, they would get the chance. But they might be surprised by what they found. The journey to council space would take 2 weeks. 2 weeks to prepare for the most important meeting in human history. 2 weeks to decide whether humanity would have a future among the stars, or if their dreams would end in the cold darkness of space. Dongwu closed his eyes and tried to sleep, but his mind kept racing. In 14 days, he would stand before the most powerful beings in the galaxy and speak for all of humanity. He only hoped his words would be enough. The Eternal Sanctum was the largest structure Dongwu had ever seen. The council's space station stretched for hundreds of miles in every direction, covered in towers and domes that glowed with strange lights. Ships from dozens of alien species flew around it like insects around a giant lamp. "By all the stars," whispered Taehyung, Dongwu's young aide, as they approached in their shuttle.
"How did they build something so massive?"
"Very carefully and over many thousands of years," Dongwu replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Inside, he felt small and scared, but he couldn't let it show. Their shuttle was guided to a docking bay that could have held 50 human ships. Alien workers with multiple arms and strange tools quickly attached connecting tubes and power cables. Everything moved with perfect efficiency, like a machine that had been running the same way for centuries. 2 guards met them at the airlock. They looked like humans, but their skin was silver and their eyes glowed blue. They didn't speak, just gestured for Dongwu and Taehyung to follow. The corridors inside the station were enormous. The ceiling was so high that Dongwu couldn't see the top in the dim light. The walls were covered with symbols and images that hurt to look at directly. Everything seemed designed to make visitors feel tiny and unimportant. "This way," one of the guards finally spoke. His voice sounded like it came from very far away. They walked for what felt like hours, passing chambers filled with alien beings Dongwu couldn't even begin to understand. Some floated in tanks of glowing liquid. Others were just clouds of gas with sparkling lights inside. A few looked almost like humans, but with too many fingers or eyes in the wrong places. Finally, they reached the council chamber. Dongwu had to stop and catch his breath. The room was so big that it had its own weather. He could see clouds forming near the ceiling. 12 massive seats were arranged in a circle, each one designed for a different type of alien body. "Approach the center," commanded a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Dongwu walked to the middle of the chamber, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. Taehyung stayed close behind him, trying not to look scared. Around them, the 12 council members took their places. The crystal being from the message was there, even larger in person. Light reflected off its many surfaces, creating rainbow patterns on the floor. Next to it sat a creature that looked like a giant jellyfish floating in a bubble of water. On the other side was something that might have been a plant, but it had eyes and moved like an animal. "I am Vexthalan of the Crystal Hegemony," the crystal being announced. Its voice made Dongwu's teeth hurt. "I speak for the council today. You are the human called Dongwu." "I am Ambassador Dongwu representing Earth and all human colonies," he replied as loudly as he could. "Ambassador," repeated another council member, a mass of gas with sparkling lights inside. "How amusing. You give yourselves titles as if you matter." Several council members made sounds that might have been laughter. Dongwu felt his face getting hot, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Let us begin," said Vexthalan. "Humans have entered 3 star systems without permission. You have built settlements on worlds that belong to the council. You have taken resources that are not yours. These are serious crimes." "With respect," Dongwu said, "we checked all available star maps. These worlds were not marked as belonging to anyone. They have been empty for thousands of years." "Empty?" The plant creature's voice was like wind through leaves. "These worlds are our hunting grounds. We have used them for sport for 10,000 years. The fact that we do not live there does not mean they are yours to take." "Hunting grounds?" Tae-hyung whispered, too quietly for the council to hear. "Furthermore," continued a council member that looked like a giant insect, "your species is far too young and primitive to be allowed free expansion. You have existed for barely a moment in galactic terms. You know nothing of proper behavior. We know enough not to claim empty worlds as hunting grounds while other species need homes," Dongwu said before he could stop himself. The chamber fell silent. The council members turned to look at each other with whatever they used for eyes. Dongwu realized he had made a mistake. "Insolent creature," hissed Vexthalan. "You dare to question our ancient rights? We were building starships when your species was still hiding in caves." "And what have you built recently?" Dongwu asked, his diplomatic training finally kicking in. "Your technology is impressive, but our scientists tell us it hasn't changed in thousands of years. Meanwhile, humans went from caves to space travel in just a few thousand years. We're still growing, still learning. Growing like a cancer," said the jellyfish creature. "Growing like a disease that must be stopped before it spreads." Another council member, this one looking like a living shadow, spoke in a voice like whispers in the dark. "We have seen species like yours before. Young, aggressive, ambitious. They all thought they were special. They all thought they deserved a place among the stars. What happened to them?" Dongwu asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. "They learned their place," said Vexthalan. "Or they ceased to exist." The choice was theirs. The crystal being stood up, growing even larger as light flowed through its body. "Here is our judgment, little human. Your species has 2 choices. You can accept our guidance and become a protected species under our care. You will do as we say, go where we allow, and take only what we give you. In return, we will let you live. And the other choice?" Dongwu asked. "Complete removal from this galaxy," said the insect creature. "We have methods that are quite effective. Diseases that target specific DNA patterns. Solar manipulation that can turn your worlds into burning wastelands. Weapons that can make your stars explode." Tae-hyung grabbed Dongwu's arm, but the ambassador shook him off. "You would commit genocide because we built farms on empty planets?" Dongwu asked. "We would remove a threat before it grows too large," replied Vexthalan. "It is not personal, human. It is simply practical. The galaxy has an order that has worked for millions of years. We will not let one young species destroy that order." "What about the colonists already on those worlds?" Dongwu asked. "Families with children. Farmers and teachers and engineers who just want to build a better life." "They can relocate," said the shadow creature. "Or not. Their choice." The casual cruelty of those words hit Dongwu like a physical blow. These beings were talking about thousands of human lives as if they were discussing the weather. "How long do we have to decide?" he asked. "1 solar cycle," said Vexthalan. "Return to your little worlds and discuss it with your leaders. Choose submission or destruction. There are no other options." "And if we choose neither?" Dongwu asked. The council members made their laughing sounds again. "Then you are even more primitive than we thought," said the jellyfish creature. "There are no other choices. Submit or die. These are the only options any species has ever had." "You may go now," said Vexthalan. "When you return, bring your answer. And human, choose wisely. We have destroyed 47 species that made the wrong choice. We feel no guilt about adding a 48th. As Dongwu and Tae-hyung were escorted back to their shuttle, The young aide finally spoke. "Sir, what are we going to do?" "I don't know," Dongwu admitted. "But I know what we're not going to do. We're not going to become slaves, and we're not going to give up without a fight." As their shuttle pulled away from the eternal sanctum, Dongwu looked back at the massive structure. Inside that station were beings who considered themselves gods, who thought they had the right to decide which species lived and which died. Maybe they were right. Maybe humanity was too young and weak to challenge such ancient power. But as Dongwu thought about the children in Teacher Yunji's school and the crops growing in Farmer Jinu's fields, he felt something the council members had lost long ago. He felt hope. The emergency meeting was held in the largest conference room on Earth. President Yu Jin sat at the head of the table, her face grim as she listened to Dongwu's report. Around the table sat the most important leaders in human space: generals, scientists, colony governors, and trade representatives. "So they gave us a choice between slavery and death," said General Kwang Su, his scarred hands clenched into fists. "How generous of them." "There might be a third option," Dongwu said quietly. "But you're not going to like it." President Yu Jin leaned forward. "Tell us, we leave. Not just the 3 disputed planets, but all of Council space. We pack up everything and everyone and we go somewhere else." The room erupted in angry voices. "Run away like cowards?" shouted Governor Minseok from New Busan Colony. "My people have worked for years to build their homes. They'd rather die than abandon everything." "That might be exactly what happens if we stay," Dr. Sun Ho said calmly. "I've been studying the Council's history since Dongwu left. They're not bluffing about extinction. They've done it before." He activated the room's display screen showing images of dead worlds. These were once home to species that refused to submit. Now they're nothing but rocks floating in space. The Council has weapons that can destroy entire solar systems. "We could fight," said Admiral Seok Jin, commander of Earth's newest warships. "We might not win, but we could make them pay a price." "With what?" asked Chief Engineer Bora. She had just returned from the disputed planets and looked exhausted. "Our best warship has maybe 50 weapons. One of their ships has thousands. It would be like throwing rocks at a tank." President Yu Jin raised her hand for silence. "What exactly are you suggesting, Dongwu?" "Complete withdrawal from this part of the galaxy. We take everyone and everything and we find somewhere else to build our civilization, somewhere far from the Council's reach." "That's impossible," protested Trade Representative Jae Sung. "We have millions of people spread across dozens of worlds. The logistics alone would take decades." "Better decades of hard work than extinction," replied Dr. Sun Ho. "And it might not be as impossible as you think. Our exploration ships have found evidence of other galaxies beyond this one, places where the Council has never been." Scientist He-Wan, who had been working on the terraforming project, spoke up. "The 3 disputed worlds aren't just our homes now. They're proof of what we can do. We turned empty rocks into gardens in just a few years. We can do it again anywhere. But why should we have to?" demanded Governor Minseok. "Why should we run from bullies?" "Because sometimes the smart thing to do is walk away from a fight you can't win," said Dongwu. "At least not yet." President Yu Jin was quiet for a long moment. "You said not yet. What did you mean?" "The Council stopped growing thousands of years ago. They're like ancient trees, big and strong but not flexible. They break in storms that would just bend younger trees." Dongwu stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "We're still growing, still learning, still changing. Give us time, and maybe someday we'll be strong enough to come back." Admiral Seok Jin shook his head. "This is madness. We'd be giving up everything our species has worked for, would we?" asked Dr. Sun Ho. "What have we really worked for? Territory? Resources? Or something more?" He activated another display, showing images from the disputed colonies. Children playing in parks, farmers harvesting crops, teachers leading classes, artists creating sculptures, engineers building new machines. "This is what we're really fighting for," he said. "Not the planets themselves, but our right to grow and build and dream. We can do that anywhere." Chief Engineer Bora nodded slowly. "I've seen what our people can do when they work together. On New Busan, they built a city from nothing in 18 months. On Haven Colony, they turned a desert into farmland. On Freedom Station, they created new technologies that even Earth scientists couldn't imagine." "Exactly," said Dongwu. "The Council thinks we're just another primitive species that wants their territory." They don't understand that we're not trying to take what they have. We're trying to build something better. Communications Director So Young, who had been quiet during the meeting, finally spoke. If we do this, if we really leave, we need to send a message. Not just to the Council, but to every other species in the galaxy. What kind of message? Asked President Eugene. That we're not running in fear. That we're making a choice. That we reject their version of civilization and we're going to build our own. Environmental Specialist Na Young raised her hand. I can make sure we leave the disputed worlds exactly as we found them. Clean up every trace of human presence. Show them that we're not the destructive species they think we are. Merchant Captain Wu Jin, who had been coordinating trade between the colonies, leaned forward. I can organize the evacuation. My ships and crews know every human settlement in Council space. We can get everyone out safely. The room fell silent as everyone considered the enormity of what they were discussing, abandoning everything humans had built in space, leaving behind homes and dreams and years of hard work, starting over in some unknown part of the universe. President Eugene looked around the table at each face. This isn't a decision I can make alone. We need to vote. But first I want to hear from our people on the disputed worlds. They're the ones who would be giving up the most. The communication screen activated, showing 3 split images. Governor Min Seok appeared from New Busan, Teacher Yunji from Haven Colony, and Farmer Jinu from Freedom Station. We've been listening to the entire meeting, said Min Seok, and we've been talking to our people. They want to vote too. Over the next hour, representatives from every human world cast their votes. The debate was fierce. Some wanted to fight regardless of the odds. Others preferred to accept council rule rather than abandon their homes. But slowly a consensus emerged. The final vote was close, 57% in favor of complete withdrawal. Not overwhelming, but enough. President Eugene stood up. The decision is made. We will leave council space entirely. But we will not run in shame. We will leave as a statement of our values and our determination to be free. Admiral Seok Jin, who had voted against withdrawal, stood up and saluted. If this is the path we're taking, then we'll take it together. My fleet will protect the evacuation ships. Dr. Sunho was already making notes on his tablet. I'll coordinate the scientific teams. We need to catalog everything we've learned and make sure we don't lose any knowledge. Chief Engineer Bora cracked her knuckles. This is going to be the biggest engineering project in human history. Good thing I like challenges. As the meeting broke up and people began making plans, Dongwu stood alone at the window. In a few months, every human would be gone from this part of the galaxy. The council would have their empty hunting grounds back. But somewhere else, in some distant corner of the universe, humanity would build something new. Something the council couldn't imagine or control. Something that would prove that the young species they mocked today might be the ones laughing tomorrow. The real test was just beginning. Operation Silent Dawn began at exactly midnight, Earth Standard Time. Across dozens of worlds and hundreds of space stations, humans started the largest evacuation in galactic history. But this wasn't a panicked retreat. It was a carefully planned demonstration of what humanity could accomplish when working together. Fleet Commander Jae-sung stood on the bridge of the massive transport ship Seoul's Promise, watching thousands of smaller vessels move in perfect formation. Supply ships, passenger carriers, cargo haulers, and research vessels all working together like parts of a giant machine. Status report from all sectors, he called out. New Busan evacuation. 70% complete, reported his communications officer. Haven Colony at 65%. Freedom Station at 80%. Any problems? None, sir. Everyone's staying on schedule. On the surface of New Busan, Governor Min Seok supervised the loading of the last agricultural equipment. The farms that had fed thousands of people were being carefully dismantled, every piece of machinery cataloged and packed away. Make sure we get every seed, he told his workers. These plants have adapted to this world's soil. They might help us on the next one. Farmer Jinu was working nearby, carefully digging up soil samples from his fields. 20 years I spent developing this strain of wheat, he said to his daughter Sujin. It grows twice as fast as Earth wheat and tastes better too. The council might get this planet back, but they're not getting our knowledge. At the spaceport, families were saying goodbye to homes they had built with their own hands. But there were no tears of defeat, only quiet determination. Children carried bags full of books and toys. Adults took pictures and videos to remember what they had accomplished. Teacher Yoonji stood in her empty classroom, looking at the walls where her students had painted pictures of their dreams. "We're not losing our home," she told herself. "We're just moving it somewhere else." Chief Engineer Bora was coordinating the most complex part of the operation, the complete removal of all human infrastructure. Every building was being carefully taken apart. Every piece of technology was being recovered. Even the roads were being broken up and the materials recycled. "The Council wants these worlds back exactly as they found them," she told her teams. "Let's give them exactly that." Environmental specialist Na Young was working with biological teams to reverse the terraforming work humans had done. Gardens were being replanted with native species. Atmospheric processors were being run in reverse to restore the original air composition. Even the water systems were being returned to their natural state. "It's like we were never here," said one of her assistants, sounding sad. "No," Na Young corrected. "It's like we're so confident in our abilities that we don't need to leave any traces. We can build all of this again, anywhere we want." Communications Director So Young was carefully crafting humanity's final message to the galaxy. It would be broadcast on every frequency, translated into hundreds of languages, and sent to every known civilization. "People of the galaxy," she wrote, "humanity has made its choice. We reject the Council's offer of slavery disguised as protection. We reject their threat of extinction disguised as justice. We choose to leave not in fear but in recognition that some neighbors are not worth having. We came to the stars seeking friends and found only masters. We offered cooperation and received only contempt. We asked for understanding and were given ultimatums. So we go elsewhere, to build something better than what exists here. We leave these worlds as we found them, proving that we take only what we need and damage only what threatens us. We carry with us our dreams, our knowledge, and our determination to remain free. To those who would follow in our path, remember, the galaxy is vast, but small minds try to make it smaller. Do not let them. Grow, explore, build, and dream, and remember that those who cannot change cannot survive. We are humanity. We were here. We will be elsewhere, and we will remember. The evacuation took 6 months. During that time, Council ships appeared regularly to monitor the process. At first, they seemed suspicious, expecting some kind of trick or trap. But as the days passed and humans simply packed up and left, the aliens grew more confident. Observer Kethmore, a Council spy, sent regular reports back to the Eternal Sanctum. "The humans continue their withdrawal," he reported. "No military preparations detected. No hidden weapons discovered. They appear to be genuinely leaving." But something about the evacuation bothered him. It was too organized, too efficient. Most species that faced Council ultimatums either fought desperately or surrendered in chaos. Humans were doing neither. They were leaving with their heads held high, taking everything of value and fixing everything they had changed. On the Council station, Vexthalin read Kethmore's reports with satisfaction. "See how quickly they bend the knee when faced with real power," he told the other Council members. "Another primitive species learns its place. They're not bending the knee," pointed out Morgeth, the hive mind representative. "They're leaving entirely." "Same result," dismissed Vexthalin. "They're gone and we have our hunting grounds back. What they do outside our territory is irrelevant." But ancient keeper Nethfor, the oldest member of the Council, was less certain. "In my thousands of years I have seen many species face our ultimatums. None have ever responded like this." "Responded like what?" asked the gaseous being Zixquill. With confidence, Nethfor replied. "They act as if they're doing us a favor by leaving. Back in human space, the last transport ships were preparing to depart. Every human settlement had been completely evacuated. Every piece of technology had been recovered. Every trace of human presence had been erased. Merchant Captain Wu Jin made the final sweep of the 3 disputed worlds, checking to make sure nothing had been left behind. What he found amazed him. The planets looked exactly as they had when humans first arrived. Pristine, untouched, perfect. Except for one thing on each world. In the exact center of each planet's largest continent, humans had built a simple stone monument. Each stone was carved with the same message in dozens of languages. Humanity arrived here on date. We built homes, farms, schools, and dreams. We left on date when neighbors proved unworthy of our friendship. We go to build something better. This stone remains to mark what was and what could have been. The last human ship left Council space on the final day of the deadline. As they jumped to hyperspace heading for the edge of the galaxy, the crew of the Soul's Promise looked back one last time at the worlds they were leaving behind. "Any regrets?" Fleet Commander Jae-sung asked his crew. "Only one," replied his navigation officer. "I regret that we wasted time trying to be friends with them." "Don't think of it as wasted time," said Communications Officer Haewon. "Think of it as a valuable lesson. Now we know what kind of civilization we don't want to become." As the human fleet disappeared beyond the galactic rim, Observer Kethmore sent his final report to the Council. "All humans have departed. The disputed worlds have been returned to their original state. Mission accomplished." But privately he wondered why he felt like the humans had somehow won this exchange. They had lost their colonies, but they acted like they had gained something more valuable. On the Eternal Sanctum, the Council members celebrated their victory. They had maintained their ancient order. They had shown another young species its place. They had proven once again that the galaxy belonged to those who had always ruled it. They never noticed that they had just let slip away the one species that might have changed everything. 200 years had passed since humanity left Council space. The Galactic Council had almost forgotten about the strange species that had chosen exile over submission. Their ancient routines continued unchanged. Meetings that lasted decades, decisions that took centuries, and the comfortable certainty that they would rule the galaxy forever. Then the Devourers came. Emergency Coordinator Elix Ashan had never seen panic in the Council chamber before. The 12 ancient beings who had ruled with absolute confidence for millennia were now speaking in frightened whispers, their usual arrogance replaced by something they hadn't felt in thousands of years: fear. 17 worlds lost in the past month, Elix Ashan reported, his multiple arms shaking as he updated the display. The Devourers consume everything: our ships, our stations, even our planets. They learn from each attack, adapting faster than we can respond. The Devourers weren't alive in any way the Council understood. They were machines, but machines that evolved and grew stronger with each battle. They ate technology, breaking it down and rebuilding it into better versions of themselves. Every weapon the Council used against them only made them smarter. "Our defense grid on Hegemony Prime lasted 6 hours," reported Vexathalan, the crystal being's light flickering weakly. "The same grid that protected us for 5,000 years. The Devourers studied it for minutes, then walked through it like it wasn't there." Ancient Keeper Nethivor, now the oldest living being in the galaxy, spoke in a voice heavy with dread. "In all my years, I have never seen anything like this. They don't want to rule us or enslave us. They just want to consume everything we've built." "How many worlds do we have left?" asked Morgoth, the hive mind's thoughts scattered with terror. 43, Elix Ashan replied. "From over 300 just 5 years ago." The silence in the chamber was deafening. These beings had ruled the galaxy for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to lose. Now they were losing everything, and their ancient technology was useless against an enemy that learned and adapted faster than they could think. "We need new strategies," said Vexthalan. "New weapons." "New technologies, with what?" demanded the gaseous being Zixquill. "Our technology hasn't changed in millennia. We don't know how to innovate anymore. We only know how to maintain what we've always had." Meanwhile, far beyond the galactic rim where the Council had never bothered to look, humanity had built something impossible. Fleet Admiral Chan Wu stood on the observation deck of the New Earth Command Station, looking out at a sight that would have amazed the ancient Council members. 3 entire galaxies sparkled in the distance, each one filled with human colonies, trade routes, and exploration fleets. "Status report," he called to his aide. "The Andromeda settlements report successful contact with the Jalarian refugees," said Captain Aureum. Apparently, the Council declared them unsuitable for advancement and ordered them destroyed. They escaped just before the extinction fleet arrived. "How many refugee species are we hosting now?" Chan Wu asked. 47 different species across all 3 galaxies. Turns out the Council had a lot of enemies who just needed somewhere safe to run. Captain Aureum pulled up a holographic display showing the human expansion. Unlike the Council's rigid, unchanging empire, human space was constantly growing and changing. New colonies appeared every month. New technologies emerged from the combination of human creativity and alien knowledge. New art, music, and literature bloomed wherever different species worked together. Sir, we're also getting those strange reports again, Ariam continued. Long-range sensors are detecting some kind of disturbance in council space. Massive energy signatures, but not from any technology we recognize. The Devourers. That's what our xenobiologist teams think. Dr. Gite's people have been studying the pattern of destruction. Whatever it is, it learns from every encounter. It's like a virus that infects technology itself. Admiral Chan Wu nodded grimly. He had read the reports about the machine plague spreading through the old galaxy. Part of him felt sorry for the council species. Another part remembered the contempt in their voices when they had offered humanity the choice between slavery and death. Any word from the council? He asked. Nothing official, but we've been intercepting their emergency broadcasts. They're desperate. That desperation was about to become much more personal. Chancellor Myung-hee was in her office on New Geneva, the capital world of human space, when the impossible happened. Her secretary announced that a council delegation was requesting an audience. A council delegation? Myung-hee repeated, not believing what she heard. Here in our space. Yes, ma'am. 3 ships appeared at the edge of our territory an hour ago. They're requesting safe passage and formal diplomatic contact. Myung-hee was the great-granddaughter of Ambassador Dongwu, the man who had faced the council's mockery 2 centuries earlier. She had grown up hearing stories about that humiliation, about the choice between submission and extinction, about humanity's proud decision to leave rather than bow down. Let them come, she said, but they follow our rules in our space. The council ships that arrived were pathetic compared to the massive vessels that had once intimidated human diplomats. These were clearly refugees, ships packed with survivors, their hulls scarred by weapons that human sensors couldn't identify. The delegation that met with Chancellor Myung-hee was led by Vexthalan, but the proud crystal being was now dim and cracked. Several of his surfaces had been broken off and his light flickered weakly. Chancellor, Vexthalan began, his voice no longer the commanding boom that had once echoed through the eternal sanctum. We come seeking assistance. Assistance, Myung-hee repeated calmly. How interesting. 200 years ago you offered us assistance. Protection, you called it, in exchange for our freedom. The situation has changed, said Morgeth, the hive mind's thoughts clearly fragmented with stress. The Devourers threaten all life in the galaxy. We need your help to stop them. And why would we help you? Asked Myung-hee. You made it very clear that young species like humanity had nothing to offer ancient civilizations like yours. We were mistaken, Vexthalan admitted, the words clearly painful for him to speak. Chancellor Myung-hee stood up and walked to her window, which showed a view of New Geneva's capital city. The streets below were filled with dozens of different species, all refugees who had found welcome in human space after fleeing council oppression. Tell me about these Devourers, she said without turning around. They consume technology, explained Ancient Keeper Nethvor. They learn from everything they encounter, adapting faster than we can respond. Our weapons, our defenses, our strategies. Nothing works because they become immune to everything we try. They sound terrible, Myung-hee said. And you want our help because your technology is different, Vexthalan said desperately. It changes constantly. It adapts. It's unpredictable. The Devourers might not be able to counter it as easily. Myung-hee turned around to face the delegation. So you're saying that the primitive, chaotic, undisciplined approach to technology that you mocked 2 centuries ago might be exactly what you need now? The council members looked at each other uncomfortably. Yes, Vexthalan finally admitted. Fascinating, Myung-hee said. And what are you offering in exchange for this help? Anything, said Morgeth. Full membership in the council, territory, resources, recognition as equals. Equals. Myung-hee laughed, but there was no humor in it. 200 years ago, you told us we were barely worthy of existence. Now you want to call us equals because you need our help? She walked back to her desk and sat down, studying the broken beings before her. Let me tell you what I see when I look at you. I see civilizations that stopped growing, stopped learning, stopped changing. You became so confident in your superiority that you forgot the most important lesson in the universe. Adapt or die. We're offering everything, Vexthalan pleaded. You're offering nothing, Myung-hee replied, because you have nothing we want. Territory? We have 3 galaxies. Resources? We have more than we can use. Recognition? From whom? From civilizations that can't even save themselves? She gestured toward the window again. Do you know what we've built out here? Not just colonies or trade routes or military fleets. We've built something you never understood. A civilization based on growth, change, and cooperation. We've welcomed 47 species that you declared unworthy. We've created technologies that emerge from combining different ways of thinking. We've built art and music and literature that no single species could have imagined alone. Then you'll help us? Asked Nethvor hopefully. No, Myung-hee said simply. We will not help you. The silence that followed was deafening. Not from cruelty, she continued, but from recognition of a simple truth. Civilizations that cannot grow, cannot adapt, and cannot change are already dead. They just haven't stopped moving yet. But the devourers will spread, protested Vexthalin. They'll eventually reach your space too. Perhaps, Myung-hee agreed. And if they do, we'll face them. But we'll face them as a young, growing, changing civilization that's still learning how to survive. You face them as ancient monuments to your own past glories. She stood up, indicating that the meeting was over. You may stay in our space as refugees if you choose.